The Marla and Dave radio experience begins in 3, 2, 1.
Now, if you're ready, we will begin.
Welcome to the Marla and Dave radio show. This is reality radio with a couple that keeps it real. Current events, pop culture, music, relationships, fitness, the hot topics of the day. Marla and Dave Thomas. This is the Marla and Dave radio show. Real radio. Turn up!
Welcome to the Marla and Dave show. Tony.
Oh, you beat me.
We're still racing?
Yeah, we always race.
That was last year.
No, Marla. You're competitive.
I stopped competing.
So I have
with
to
you.
race anytime you're in the room. It's whether it's a unspoken race or competition of some sort.
Well,
anyway,
Dave,
welcome to the Marla and Dave show. I talked her out of it and now I won. Anyway, so let's go. Marla,
Dave,
what were you saying?
Can I say this? Can I say that I appreciate the fact that you never rush through any of our sexual encounters? Thank you for that.
Oh, boy. Our daughter is in the
That's
house
how she
today.
got here. I wanted to say, Lexi, congratulations. You were slow brewed.
You know, it was speaking of Lexi, several years ago, our daughter Lexi launched the assertion that it was definitely a parent's obligation to pay for their children to attend college. And she almost got bratty with it, by the way. That was then, and this is now. The transition of parent-child relationship is a difficult one for most parents, at least from our perspective. When should I let go is what parents often ask.
When should I
expect them to appreciate the sacrifice?
Or how do I change my expectations from parenting the child to being a friend with the now adult?
A spanking friend. It's sort of a friend with benefits from a parent's perspective.
So if you're a parent, all of
you
us...
can also spank and punish.
David, you do know that the Department of Child and Family Services is always watching.
Anyway, most parents face these questions and more. Today, Lexi, or Drew, as you guys know her. We call her Lexi at home, but Drew is in the house.
Drew is in the MaD House with us, and we're excited to hear her vantage point. As a matter of fact, before we got started, I even said to her, today is her chance to fill out her parent report card. We have 3 children, as you know, all which are adults now, but she's here, and we're going to talk about her perspective from cradle to career. So that is, we welcome you, Lexi. Welcome to the MaD House. You got to put your mic right to your mouth, there,
sweetie. She's usually behind the camera, so she's not used to dealing with the microphone.
You can pull it down. You can make it
and being the talent.
Yeah, you're talent today, boo. You're coming up in the world.
Well, before we get to our conversation with Lexi, we have some week in review cleanup, so to speak. Marla, tell me about your week this week.
Well, first of all, my personal week, let's get right to the tennis showdown that we have going. And I actually think that we've been who's on topping back and forth a lot lately. Because today you beat me 6-3, but then last week, we played twice. You beat me one time 6-1, and I turned around and beat you 6-2. And so we've been doing, the domination, we've been mutually dominating each other on a regular basis. There's nobody who's been running away with any, crazy amounts of dominant wins.
You know what I'm going to say
Correct. Okay,
about that is that I agree. We've been going back and forth. And I agree, like Roger Federer had to literally change up some tactics. I've been working on some things, and when I'm in work mode, you tend to actually kick my butt. I'll be honest with you. That's what happens.
When you're in work mode?
Yeah.
That means when you're going out of town, how can I kick your butt? You're not even here.
No, when I'm working on when I'm in work mode on the tennis court. In other words, when I'm working on something specific, a deficit that I need to actually fix.
Oh, when you're actually trying to adjust something about your game.
Yes.
It causes you to lose.
It causes you to win.
Oh, okay. You lose.
I wouldn't even say cause. It allows.
Okay.
You won't waste too much time on that anyway. But hey, guess what I did? Mervyn Warren, former Take-Six member, friend and brother,
it's about time.
Was honored at Oakwood University, formerly Oakwood College, where the group formed, Take-Six. And they had homecoming this past weekend, and we were there, and it was an awesome program Friday night. Different artists came in, and they sung some of the old songs that Mervyn had written back in the day. Matter of fact, one of his first groups was called Symbolic Sounds.
Yeah, we found that out when we were on the show. I was shocked at his whole historic He took me back down memory lane.
And I actually was recruited to sing with Symbolic Sounds because they didn't have enough guys to sing some of the parts that Merv was in his early genius years, had so many vocal harmonies and parts that they needed somebody to help fill in. So I did that. Take Six performed. Special Blend, Merv's former group, performed.
Symbolic Sounds performed. Jonathan Slocum did a great job hosting as the comedian. He was the MC of the night. Shalea Frazier performed. Stevie Mackey. It was like a who's who of like old school. You forget how much
Okie
musical.
dates.
It's true. You forget that Moran Hall turned out some massive talent back in the day.
You can actually go online on Facebook and look up some of the Oakwood alumni.
Take Six University has
Oakwood University? Take Six University?
Is it Take Six? Not Take Six Universe.
Oh, okay. It's
has the
it's
whole
posted
program.
there. Absolutely.
On Facebook. That's where you go. Anyway, the last but not certainly least, our beautiful, fabulous daughter is back. Lexi, you know what?
Now you want to pour in the compliment.
Into the mic, please, Lexi. I
Now
keep having
she
to say
wants to
that,
compliment.
Miss Producer.
Yeah, I do. I want to say that I'm always glad to see you, and even the joy is overflowing even more now that you've gotten the hell out of the house and you have your own job. It makes me even that much more excited.
And
to
you know
see
what I have to say about you, Lexi? The more that you start to as you grow into your adulthood and you start to look more and more like your adult father, you're so beautiful. Anyway.
Oh, thanks, Dad.
Okay.
You're just gorgeous, sweetheart.
She has breasts. That means that she looks a lot more like
kind
me.
of.
Well, I'm not gonna look at that part, so I'll let you guys deal with
Just
that.
letting you know that she is she. Anyway, let's play our mood song. It's a combo.
Absolutely, we have the same for the first time in a long time, well, ever, I guess. We have the same mood song.
You copied me.
Wow.
But we all know time moves on. Can't keep living off dad and mom. Cause when they gone, you don't wanna be the one singing this song. I wanna go on a shopping spree. I wanna hit the lottery. I want a whole lot of things that don't cost a thing. So I can go back to my friends who mom and dad bought for me.
Oh.
Okay.
That was probably
That's
that the
why-
first song that
Was one of the. Let me give you some history. First of all, that was our son DJ, who's known in the music industry as he's working on his music as Detox. Detox Music. So that was that was his first actual recorded song called Lottery Mentality.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to post that on our page, and so you guys can parent share it with your kids. It's G-rated, but it's a pretty powerful song in the content of you can't keep sitting around waiting for something to happen.
The genius of Detox. Man, again, that was his first song. So yeah, anyway, and it kind of aptly describes Drew's former mentality.
Yeah, she was
You can either call it lottery mentality or Drew's mentality.
we took her to
One or the
lunch.
other.
They're not interchangeable. That was not my.
It goes either
We
way.
took her to lunch the other day, and David and I and Lexi were walking to the village, and we just flat out said, Dad said, yeah, you back in the day, you were a brat. And
I disagreed. I disagree.
Well, we're going to get into that, but I have to say
well,
this.
would you at least say you were entitled?
I was entitled to an extent, but I was never. To me, a brat needs an enabler to become a full-blown brat. I always had.
It's like fermenting.
So for me, and every child has wants and wishes, and if every kid could, they would have a pony. But
Wait, Lexi, I'm going to have to make you hold that thought. Hold on to it, because before we get out of the intro segment, I need to bring us up to speed on Trump Watch. Don't you guys want to know that we're about to go to nuclear war?
We're not going to nuclear war.
He's making some pretty bold.
Yeah, I know. Now that he's
assertions to North Korea.
Now that he got something popular, see, that's why you can't applaud him.
And Kim Jong-un is actually responding back with basically saying we could do this.
Yeah. So he threw a bomb.
I heard a zip zip.
Now
I heard one pull out.
Now he's
I heard one show.
Now he's bomb happy. That's what he wants to do now. And this is the problem, because all of these things have deeper consequences than the length of Trump's penis. You got to actually think beyond his smallness and understand that beyond that, there's a whole
smallness of his penis,
Yes.
or here it comes.
That's what I'm saying. Stop peeing. This is a pissing contest, and in reality, there's actual real lives that are impacted by his stupid little ego and his unintelligent. I just can't. hates the starting the spew.
All right. Well, like we said, we are here with our youngest daughter, Drew Alexis Thomas, and we're going to be talking about the expectations of adult parent-child relationships when we come back in a minute.
You're listening to the Marla and Dave radio show on the Universal Broadcast Network. Current events, pop culture, the hot topics of the day. It's time for MaD News on the Marla and Dave radio show. Ladies and gentlemen, Marla and Dave.
All right, so this week's news segment is, we always break the news down into 3 segments. We've changed one of our segments, and I'm going to tell you right briefly why we've done that. But here are the 3 general segments. Are you kidding me? Which is something shocking. It used to be he said, she said, but we've changed that to MaD Entertainment.
I never quite understood he said, she said.
Gossip.
It was gossip, but
It's celebrity gossip.
Seems to imply Marla and Dave, and it was not really about us.
Yeah,
So.
it's MaD Entertainment, and the reason that we changed it is because, to be totally honest with you, most of the things in entertainment that people call news, we don't. And neither do I really care. It's my show. I can say what I want. I think it's stupid. If Rihanna wants to be naked, let her be naked.
I'll watch.
What does that
Now
to do?
that's kind of interesting.
It's not news, especially when she's always naked. But anyway, so the 3 segments now are you kidding me? He's MaD Entertainment, and something that we agree, a topic that is sparked, backed by the news story that we either agree or disagree on. So let's get to our first news story. Are you kidding me? United Airlines, I'm starting to feel sorry for them. It's like they're under siege. And once something came wrong, it's like, you pull a thread and everything just unravels.
Well, yeah, the funny thing about it was, as everybody was focused on the doctor, the Asian doctor that was pulled off the flight, they actually
beat him up.
Beat him up pretty
Knocked
bad.
Knocked his teeth out.
Well, and I would say, poor him, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be called United / something else Airlines pretty soon.
Well, he will change the policies when he owns the airline. Trust me, they'll be different.
But that same day, Richard Bell was flying with his wife Linda from Houston to Calgary, and
for a destination wedding,
something fell on his head. He was like, "Hey, what is
Scorpion.
this?" Popped it down, and it was a scorpion fell into his plate
and stung him.
He went to actually move the scorpion like he didn't really know that. I guess he didn't know that much about scorpions. The scorpion, pow, stung him on his finger, and then he flung it down. Another passenger on the plane smashes the scorpion, and they flush it down the toilet. For the record, those of you at home, if you ever get bit by something poisonous or you think it is, don't get rid of it, because the doctors need to know what it is so they can actually give you
an anti-venom.
The correct anti-venom. Anyway, that happened, and then this week what came out in the news was a
couple going to a destination wedding.
A couple going to their wedding. Michael Hull and Amber Maxwell were traveling to Costa Rica for their wedding, and they get on the plane, they try to board the plane, and there was somebody laid out across all 3 seats on their row that they were supposed to be sitting in. They were like, let's leave them alone. They went to sit a few rows more forward to the front of the plane, and the flight attendants come on board, ask him, try to start some mess, say that they're trying to get better seats. Eventually, the marshals came on board and actually asked him to leave. Now, they won't own part of the airline because, like Marla, they didn't resist.
I'm fighting back now. Like Lexi, she says she's banging her head every
like this the whole way down.
Long story short, United Airlines, shame on you. I just don't want to fly you.
They're not.
Sorry.
They're not. Yeah, the United Airlines is no longer. They're the least friendly in the sky. Matter of fact, they're about to be grounded. Anyway, and last but MaD Entertainment.
Yes. Well, it's almost a year after Prince's death.
Go ahead, Dave.
Go ahead. You were about to say.
No, I was just gonna say, in life, in entertainment, and death, it seems that entertainers always tend to get favor over everybody in the world, other people, the average, person walking around. So Prince he died more than a year ago, but it's coming out that it's his autopsy uncovered that he died of an opiate overdose.
Opioid, yeah. Fentanyl.
Fentanyl, which is the strongest opiate you can get.
My problem is everybody's mad at the doctor, but when it's a regular person on the street, it's like that person's just
they're just an addict,
a helpless drug addict, and it's a deviant. But when it's Prince or Michael Jackson, it's what's wrong with that person's doctor.
Right. which is whack. I mean, it's
And
whack.
It's a disease for everybody. I'll put
Correct.
it to you like that.
Correct. Everybody gets affected. One's not more than the other one.
All right, quick, agree to disagree. Charles Barkley actually was dogging Isaiah Thomas, who plays for the Boston Celtics, when he was crying on the sidelines before the game this weekend, which was a little
And
insensitive.
he kept saying, this is making me so uncomfortable. He was uncomfortable with the fact that Isaiah Thomas was crying on the court.
But the issue was that Isaiah Thomas, his sister, had been killed
In a
the
car
day
accident.
before in a car accident. And so I understand what Charles Barkley was talking about, but it was just inappropriate to me.
And this leads me to also quickly say as well that this is the actual problem when you don't really have the whole story. And it happened this weekend as well with Christian Dentley being outed and publicly scorned for wearing his hat in the sanctuary, not understanding what was really going on as to why he's wearing his hat.
At least Charles Barkley is paid to run his mouth and say inappropriate things. But
Yeah.
the people on Facebook, as far as Christian is concerned,
Yeah,
just shut up.
you're not getting a check.
Jeez. Anyway, that's the MaD News.
We'll be
We're
right
going to
back.
get to our conversation with our daughter, Drew, when we come right back.
This ain't your mama's radio show. Can you handle the truth? Then get ready for a real radio experience. Ladies and gentlemen, Marla and Dave.
Dave just went over on the clock. He went a whole minute over, guys. I just want to say, because Dave normally clock blocks, he got so worked up in the news that he just talked himself. See what happens when you talk a lot, Dave?
Well, when you're the producer, you can actually look back and see that you started the news a little late, so it was really just not as long as a minute, but it was maybe about 30 seconds over.
Well, our daughter is an actual producer, and she gets paid for that, and I'm going to find out who she thinks is actually responsible for that segment going over. Welcome to our show, Drew.
Thank you.
So, this conversation today that we're going to have is one that I'm really looking forward to inviting all parents, all people, to join us. You know, kids, being a kid and then raising kids, the whole concept of parenthood is complicated. I'm just going to say that. I'm sure that it was equally as frustrating and complicated for my parents.
Especially. But continue.
All right, that's 15 seconds right there.
That's dead air space. We never went there.
Anyway, but before I even get further into that, for all those who are joining us, many people in the different various social medias are saying hi again. We welcome you if you're joining us through Facebook Live, if you're on UBN Radio TV on Periscope. Hey, and welcome to the Marla and Dave Show, as well as if you're in the chat room. The phone number for you to call us today is 323-524-2599. Now, this is really important. If you are listening today and you're one of our listeners, don't be shy. We want you to call us and talk to us about the most impactful advice that you can give, that either you gave to your child that they received, or a parent or your parents gave to you and they received, to help shift the relationship from child to parent, from a dependent child to a responsible friend relationship.
And the
with your
distinction
parent.
between the expectation and the relationship.
Yes,
Yeah.
by all means, give us a call, 323-524-2599. Welcome, Liz, Jacqueline, Shanday, everybody in the chat room on Facebook and everywhere else. Welcome again to the show. This is our daughter, Lexi, and so we're going to get into this conversation. We were talking, and now that Lexi, you can go ahead and tell everybody how old you are and how great we are.
I think I'm 24 after 21. Doesn't matter, but I'm 24, currently living in Georgia, working as a producer for an ABC affiliate.
Producing the news, television news producer, and born of Marla and Dave.
Well,
Right.
you know what? Why don't we start
Born
out
of Marla
by
and Dave.
doing a juxtaposition of, which is something easy for the first part, which is the juxtaposition of the expectations of a parent-child relationship through the formative years. It's pretty easy to do, and let's juxtapose that against the relationship that a parent has to their adult. I don't even want to say child, but offspring. So. In the formative years, a parent is pretty much responsible for just about everything. So even when the child is making mistakes, it's usually back on the parents because it's the parents' responsibility to teach their child to behave correctly and to provide for the child and to pretty much do everything and to whatever it takes to turn that child into a responsible adult. What do you think, Marla, are the expectations of responsibility for the parent with their adult offspring?
It really, I'll say this.
Because that seems less defined to me.
That's what I was going to say. The real issue is, just like when we have our young children, I think that it comes to, you have to be plugged into who your child is, and each kid is completely different. Now, ironically, because Moniece found her way onto reality TV, people tend to focus on one child. I'm just saying that we have 3 children and they're all very different. So Lexi's sitting here, and we call her Lexi, but Drew's sitting here, which is her name, Drew Alexis Thomas. There you go. But Drew's sitting here, and she was very sensitive and responded not by being, we really didn't need, spanking wasn't the thing, which
you could look at her with the mean look and she's ready to cry.
She was just really sensitive, and if she felt like that you were really getting on her and she had done something wrong, you were accusing her. Even now, she's gotten better in the last 2 years.
She cringes from it.
She shuts down or gets really mad back, and she's very defensive. It was very hard for her to take certain criticism. So it's the same thing with an adult. Now she is definitely adult. And finding out for me when I was going to say and fall back and give her full credit as being an adult, I had my own scale. Number one, if you're still having me to provide financially for you, get out of my face. You're not an adult. I'm the adult that's still taking care of you, because care comes in more than just one area. It's not one dimensional. I'm there for you emotionally. I'm there for you spiritually. I'm there for you physically. I'm praying for you. I'm paying for you.
Does that also include financial help from time to time?
No.
Okay.
Because everybody runs into issues. I'm
bills.
just saying I'm paying the bills. You live because of me. You can't survive. She can survive on her own. She's been doing it.
Well, Lexi, you were actually, before we actually went to the news segment, you were actually, I guess, describing the former perspective that you had of your parents had to provide for your education. That was our duty.
I would like to clarify, if allowed.
No,
we
of
run
course.
We run into this every time this conversation gets brought back up. So in the past, before I went to college, I went to Syracuse University, which, as we know, is a very expensive private education out of state for me because I'm coming from California. It's in upstate New York. So for me, this debate, so to speak, came up when my parents were talking about, obviously, it was a big undertaking to send me to Syracuse, which I agreed. But it sparked this whole debate over, is it a parent's right?
Moral obligation.
Moral obligation. That was the language we used. Moral obligation to pay for their kids to go to college. Was that the flat line?
That was it.
You're right so far.
Okay.
No argument.
Now, in my youth, my response was, and I still do.
Could we interchangeably say youth and
naivete in her
my ignorance.
You were ignorant. You were flat out dumb.
Okay. Lighten up. Okay, so
I wore the sweatsuit because I needed to fight.
In the position that I was in, obviously, I had never had to do anything. I mean, I worked little jobs here and there, but I never had to do anything fully to survive on my own because I knew that I had my parents to fall back on.
Oh, so you admit you were using us.
My argument coming from that standpoint.
But I'm going to put a pin in that because Mom said that you worked when you were growing up.
I did.
Where?
I just said that. I worked 3 jobs. At one point, I was working 2 jobs at a time. I worked at Joann's Fabric. I worked at Abercrombie. Hated it.
You don't remember she worked at Abercrombie?
And
you don't remember she was also part of the student council? Dad was
student council's not work. That's just
I'm just saying,
council.
and she volunteered.
And I did like 3
hours.
extracurriculars, and we're getting off track here. Let me finish my point. So my point at the time was,
the boss of us.
Obviously, I know that privilege is a word I would use to describe my upbringing, and I was very grateful for that. But my I think where we kind of went separate ways in that discussion was what I was trying to articulate, which I struggled with at the time because I didn't have the understanding to do it appropriately. I was trying to say, if I as a parent have the means to send, and my child has done nothing, I wasn't a troublemaker. I didn't put you through hell. I, for the most part, did everything the way I thought was pleasing to you because as we know,
Mr. Jackson.
As we know, I was, I'm sensitive. So the last thing I ever wanted to do was upset my parents. So that was a huge part of my thought process at the time. But what I was trying to articulate then, which I struggled with, which I would like to clarify now, is that I don't think it's a parent's moral obligation. However, if you, the parent, have the means, why would you squander? And this is what I was trying to say. If you, the parent, have the means, if it's going to put you in a bind, then that's a whole different conversation. But if you have the means and your child is here asking to do something that's clearly going to better them, put them in a better position for their, long-term career. What I was trying to say then, and I'm not saying this is where I even stand now, but I'm trying to explain what I was saying then.
Hurry up.
What I was trying to say is if you have the means, what is the problem? Do you know what I mean? So it's not that it's your right, but it would be weird if you had the full-blown capability and it wouldn't put you in any sort of bind for you to say flat out no.
But first of all, part of parenting is teaching. There's also a way to help shape someone's ability to be responsible and lessons to grow them up. You'd be surprised. What's his name? The dude who owns Walmart. Come on.
It was Sam Walton. But he's dead now.
Okay, right. Is it Sam Walton or is it
his kids on Walmart now?
Okay. What's the other guy? Warren Buffett.
Okay.
Who really, he doesn't give his children. Everybody has had to actually go to work for.
But let me ask you this: if Warren Buffett's kids wanted to go to college, they weren't troublemakers, and he said no, you're not going to college.
But
you would look at him like he was crazy.
Do you mind if I actually steer the conversation back to what we're saying though? Because go ahead, finish what you're saying.
First of all, and I'm asking the audience, what do you think? Call us at 323-524-2599. Do you think that it should be a parent's moral obligation, if affordable, to send their kids to school? Is it something that we should just do?
But see, that actually lines into and moves into the gray area that is the relationship and responsibility of a parent for their adult children. Now, because what Lexi is saying is, if you have the money, if you can do it, or you make enough money, what's the problem? See, part of that is the expectation and understanding of a child versus the understanding of someone who actually is paying all the bills. Because at that point, you might think I have the money, but I might have allocated that money for something else. Responsible.
Or I might not have it. Now,
or I might not have it,
and
or
in our
need
case,
to make some adjustments.
And in our case, just in transparent truth, we really scraped and struggled to get her through school. And we committed based on our promise, but in reality,
we made some
no
lifestyle
matter
changes.
what the world thinks. I mean, come on. Like for us, it was, literally downsizing, coming out of our house. It was a lot of stuff that we had to do to get through those 4 years. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm
with you.
I'm trying to follow up.
I'm just saying,
okay,
I'm with you.
But that moves into then because the real question is, would you not have become the adult that you were if you went to UCLA? Also a great school.
There are
USC,
other options.
Also a great school. It's just in the state where suddenly it would cost us thousands of dollars less.
Versus we paid $59.
You know what I mean? So at that point, from a parent's perspective, from a child's perspective, I should say, it might seem like apples and apples, but to a parent, that's apples and oranges.
In the chat room, Nikki Harris says she definitely does think it is a parent's moral obligation. Shande Moore says, we train up. Nikki is almost beat up by everybody in the family at all times. You don't even know the history there. Shande Moore Jenkins says that we train up and nurture our children. When they become adults, our responsibility as parents now becomes an advisor as needed. We begin to come out of care and move into advice as it's requested. So I mean, and I'm with all of that, but and so what I'm really saying is, your direct question to me was, what is my responsibility as she becomes an adult? And and my rule is this: as she was being weaned into adulthood, if you have the respect for me as a parent and you include me initially on any decision, I'm in it with you to help with the consequences. But if you want to be a bonehead and you want to make decisions, don't flip between a dependent child and an independent chronicle adult, but not take on adult responsibility. So my line is that. My line is, if you make a decision that gets you in hot water and you want to do something that's ridiculous and you do it without me, don't come to me to help clean up your consequences. That's where I think that begins. You have to begin to let them hold the weight of what it is they decide for themselves.
Lexi, or I should say Drew, what do you think our responsibility is now for you?
Well, I mean, at this age, once obviously I'm not living underneath you, I think at this age, once your child becomes an adult, our relationship now, I almost appreciate it more. Being away from your parents, I think that your plain responsibility at this point is just to be there as a support system, emotionally,
Sometimes financially, if you can and if I need it. But I'm saying for the most part, when you're an adult, and, not everyone has this luxury. I understand not everyone, has that. But if you're available, I think the emotional connection is what's most important.
Marlene McCraw says, but the question is if you could afford it. That changes the tone of the conversation.
Right.
So, right. And so,
that conditional, you can admit, even in my, early days,
even in
that
your stupidity
when you were
talking dumb.
That conditional was always there, obviously.
Oh, no.
I don't think it was.
It wasn't. I'm going to pull that video back up and play at the beginning of next week's show.
Yeah, because it was shocking.
No,
to me.
it wasn't.
Matter of fact, at first I thought when you had the perspective that you had back in the day, I thought you were joking at first.
She was so entitled that it was scary. No, I'm sorry.
I could be wrong, but
Man,
if I remember
I wish we were prepared.
That's what I said.
We should have had
a copy of that.
Absolutely correct.
We have to go back in the archives. I'm going to find that video.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda, but you didn't. Now what?
Okay, so there's a lot of conversation going on. Maxine Beach says, Besh says, interesting, my adult daughters and I had a similar conversation. My oldest 22 said that I should let my 18-year-old go to Oakwood if she wanted to, and it should be her choice. I replied, it was only her choice alone if she was paying for it because I didn't have to. That was the first time that they realized that I really don't have to. And that's the thing. It's adults take on a completely different responsibility.
Well, Marla, you said, and I tend to agree, a parent's responsibility stops when the child becomes chronologically an adult. From that point on, whether you're prepared or not, it's actually on you.
It's a gift.
Lexi, what do you think, though?
Are we still talking about specifically the college, or are we broadening the conversation?
We're broadening it slightly because we're going to actually get on the next segment.
This is where I completely disagree. I don't think a parent's responsibility, yes, financially you can say your responsibility as a parent stop when your child is chronologically 18. But to me, when you make the decision to have children, you're always going to be the parent. That's always going to be your child.
But we're not denying that we're the parent. What we're saying is when is
the emotional, if you are still in a connection with your child and they're alive, the emotional connection is always that never goes away.
Well, I'm going to say this because we're going to move into, and when we come back for the next segment, we're actually going to move into whose job is it to make the adjustment to actually keep the relationship stable and operating in a positive way now that once a child becomes an adult. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, listen up. Learn something. 26 years of marriage from two unique perspectives equals 52 years of relationship experience.
Excuse me, that's 58 years? Oops, I made a boo-boo.
It's time for Ask Marla and Dave. Answers to your questions about life, love, and relationship based on Marla and Dave's real-life experience. It's about to get real. Ask Marla and Dave.
Oh, now we got it right.
Yeah.
All right, yay. All
We've
right.
been married a long time.
So Ask Marla and Dave is a segment in our show where you, the audience, and MaD family write in. You send information. You send it to any of our private boxes or to our show page.
Actually, to www.marlandave.com. You click the Ask Marla and Dave tab. Go ahead, Marla.
All right. This question for today is this. Hey, y'all. Must be from the South. I had a quick but important question to ask. I am a married woman. I've been married for 8 years, but dated my husband 8 years prior to that. Before we got married, we had sex constantly. hopefully you got baptized. I'm just kidding. Now that we have been married for a while, his sex drive has fallen off completely. When I asked him about the stingy rations, he blamed it on his workload and exhaustion, then went further and suggested that I schedule sexual sessions with him so he can mentally prepare. I was floored by his response, but after I pulled my jaw off the floor and stopped smacking the crap out of him, in my head of course, I responded by saying that will never work for me. I don't want sex between us to be considered as a work obligation. The next day I started asking myself, am I being unreasonable? Well, am I?
Oh, there you go, Marla. What say you?
I think that
No, you're not being unreasonable. But go ahead, Marla.
Yeah, I think that she's not being unreasonable. I think that, sex to me is one of those things. Number one, it changes throughout your entire relationship based on just what you're saying. The load of emotional availability, that's where the best sex happens, when you can connect with somebody emotionally.
Yeah, but see, some people, I would say, again, it
Other
goes
than
back
that,
to...
beat your meat.
Okay.
It goes back to...
Sex yourself.
Jeez.
She's 24.
Man, don't disregard Marla. Too busy for love. I'm going to say this, that quite honestly, you need to have some more communication, because sometimes you might need to schedule some sexual encounters, but make it fun, make it exciting.
But if you schedule it, it is scheduled. And that's like saying...
Show up in disguise.
That's role play, Dave.
Go to the work, hide under the desk.
That's Monica.
Bill Clinton. That's called
Monica
the
Lewinsky. Just do a Lewinsky on him.
Pull a Lewinsky.
Do a Lewinsky. Anyway, bottom line is, I think I do agree that there's more conversation, but I think that what you're really saying is, without the spontaneity, it kills it for you. And this is signed Too Busy for Love. Too Busy for Love. I think that if your sex drive is what you need to get satisfied, make getting satisfied your first priority, even if you have to go on the appointment book.
Well, I agree with that. Anyway, that's the Ask Marla and Dave. Again, www.marlandave.com. Click on the Ask Marla and Dave tab, and we'll get to your question right here on the air. We're going to get back to the show.
Welcome back to the Marla and Dave radio show. Marla and Dave want to talk to you. Phone lines are open at 323-284-7826. 323-284-7826.
And we want to just remind everybody that we have a direct call-in line now, and the call-in line has changed, and it's 323-524-2599. There's a lot of conversation and a lot of people who have logged on for this discussion. My mom happens to be one of them, and her last comment was, a lot has to do with what the child is led to believe that what the possibilities are, or what the possibilities can be. So it's about it's about what we essentially trained Lexi to believe, that anything that she
trained Lexi to believe what you're about to say.
Lexi,
Go ahead.
Lexi, do you think? Okay, so let's get into us individually as parents.
Okay.
So first of all, together, do you think that Dad and I gave you an unrealistic expectation box to pull? Your
No, I mean, I always had obviously expectations come from somewhere, but I also had expectations for myself. But I think that you and Dad were very much so encouraging no matter what. You used to say to me, if you set yourself up to do X, Y, and Z, I will make it happen.
I'll meet you halfway.
I'll meet you halfway. So in my mind as a child.
But I think you really said, I'll make it happen. But go ahead. That's not
No,
halfway.
I said, no, we did. We said we would, if she did her
If I
part.
did my
So let's
part,
clarify.
you would
Who's
meet
saying
me.
that, Mom or me?
I mean, I can't.
Definitely, I can cop to that.
I think
said
Mom 100% had that attitude, but I think it was kind of a universal thing, where it was like, if you put in the legwork, we'll do our best to put in the parental legwork.
Can I just share this with the audience? I have to share one of the funniest moments ever. So I did tell her that, and
I didn't.
And I'll tell you why. But before we even go there, the first time that I realized, and the reason I'm laughing at Dave now, because I can say that that's probably the case. When Lexi started applying to colleges, I said, so you got something here from Arizona? And she's like, I'm not even going to apply for that, because I know exactly what I want to do, and that's not where I want to go. So she starts applying. And so as she started to get approved, and so she started to get accepted. So acceptance letters were coming, and she was getting emails. And she got like 2 full ride scholarships. I think one was to Hofstra. And it doesn't matter. She got a couple of scholarships, but she had
full ride.
She was very specific about where she wanted to go based on what she was going to do. And Syracuse was number 1 on her list. And I remember all the other colleges, her universities had given her the acceptance and given her the packages, her financial packages and whatever. And she comes home from school one day, and I hear this blood-curdling scream. And I was like, what happened? And she's like, oh, my God. And I ran upstairs. She's like, Mom, I got accepted to Syracuse. So I ran up to the room, read the letter. I was like, oh, my God, you got it. So we're jumping around. I said, Dave, the baby got accepted to Syracuse. He was like, that's good. Marla, can I see you in the room for a minute? And I was like, what? Like, what? Why isn't he, like, jumping around and flapping his hands around like us?
Meantime, I had jumped around and was screaming when she got the other 2 acceptance letters with the full ride scholarships.
Which one of them would have paid us at the end every semester, I think, like $17, or they would have been giving us money.
She would have extra money on top of room and board,
all of her
food,
expenses,
everything. It's like, what?
Right. So we're thinking this is just how we roll. It's what we do. And Dave said, can you come here? And I said, what? We shut the door. He pulls his computer out. He goes, well, he had already looked at the computer, which is why it took him so long to join the hoopla. He points to the computer and he says, and I looked at it and I said, is that
for the whole?
Is that $59,000
for the whole time?
What, for a year? And he was like,
no, a quarter.
No, it was for the year.
It's a semester.
For the year, it was
for the
$59,000.
year.
For the year, yeah.
$59,000 per year. But that's the basic stuff, like $58,000 and some. And I said, wait, what? And he said, exactly. You keep jumping around. And I had to laugh because I was so about helping her to soar that I felt like no matter what we have to do, for me, barring prostitution, I was going to actually make sure I supported her.
You know what? I'm going to admit something on the air. You guys didn't even know that when I was...
Oh, please.
I was on the road with the Texas. I had to prostitute myself to come on with the extra money.
Okay. I would like to find out which of the 6 members took you on.
Oh, man. So anyway, I'm just joking. Anyway, so
there could be some happy fans out there, Dave.
What I'm really saying is, at the end of the day, even as Lexi was going through college, she was coming home from time to time, it seemed like, Marla, you were having more of a problem with adult Lexi
being unappreciative
than I was.
Well, you're easier to roll and accept anything once it gets done. My thing is, and probably the same thing that drives me, which is what I said, I'll tell you why. Here's my why. My why is I actually was dealt a hand of cards. I drew a shorthand. I played a shorthand. And when I say played a shorthand, that just means that I've always been committed to parenting, but let's just face it. I have to keep it all the way real. I had Moniece Lene Slaughter at 19 years old. That's awfully young. And I understood my potential, but never gave myself a chance to soar to levels without being tethered by something that was going to be my priority. So when I see this child with all this potential, what I wanted her to do was understand her own power in her abilities. She's a thinker. She was this person. So for me, my thing was, if you do your part and you keep yourself unencumbered in life, where we will step in is to find all the resources to help you get to the next level. Because I didn't want, and to me, because she was an extraordinary writer and she was gifted in language arts, and what she wanted to do, Syracuse happened to have the best program for that in the country.
I'm trying to get you to get to the point, because I was saying that you were having a hard time. I'm not sure if you're
I'm just saying
the hard time.
that because everything has a yin and a yang. The back end of that same issue is I wanted her to understand, which she was clearly too immature at the time, to show more appreciation for this sacrifice that she didn't even really understand. So that's why I gave her a harder time with growing up, because my thing is, as a grown-up who cannot yet, only because by your license, but you can't yet do for yourself, we're turning inside out. And I was expecting more appreciation from her at that point to go, you know what? It's the same thing. The same thing that drove me to create the opportunity is the same thing that drove me to have a harder time with her not being much more effusive about her gratitude.
I like that, effusive. Right before
I'm
Lexi,
super smart, Dave. Just because my head's smaller than yours doesn't mean anything.
Right before you respond, I would always say that my perspective is always a little different because I had stopped a long time ago expecting anyone to have a perspective that they can't possibly have. In other words, I don't think a child can ever have a parent's perspective. Matter of fact, even the things that Lexi has said already during the show lets me know that she's not a parent, if that makes any sense. So because of that, you can't possibly know what it's like for me to pay the level of bills that I pay. Except now, Lexi, I'll let you respond because now that you're starting to pay some bills, it's not as easy out in those streets.
And I've said this, and in my adulthood.
But then I also want you to respond to what Mom said.
You can give me credit that I have, in random times said to you, I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, you said if you was you would never do it.
Adult, I couldn't imagine having a me. I'm mad at myself when I'm paying bills. Like, dang.
Get yourself
I'm paying
together.
my own bills, and I'm mad about it. So I definitely understand that. And I agree. That's a level of selflessness and a level of only a parent can show that amount of love, or someone that really unconditionally loves the other can give that amount of sacrifice, because I understand how frustrating it is to even take care of myself. And that to me is frustrating. But I couldn't imagine getting my paycheck every other week and then having to give it to someone else. That would drive me nuts. But I also think for me, and I can admit this, I do feel like until I have children, I feel like because I've made myself so career driven and you guys have kind of instilled that in me, and I appreciate, raising me that way, it also has made me in a weird way inherently selfish. So
we did this to you. This is our fault.
No, all I've ever
She's
been,
saying you, Marla.
all I've ever been, my whole zone is, even with your guidance, has been put yourself on the right path. Do you, be on the straight and narrow, get what you need to get, and then relax and have fun in life later. So I was so hell-bent on that it almost has made me, and this is why I agree, I think that's part of why I was so naive and immature, is because all I was thinking is well, you told me to, be on the straight and narrow,
doing what
be
you
successful.
said.
I'm doing what you said. Why aren't you doing what you said? Why would you even doubt that? And now I understand it's a multifaceted issue, but for me at that time, all I could see was the first layer is here is surface value. You said do this, and if I did this, and this would be the end result. Well, then when all these other variables came into play, I was like, what do you mean? That's not, as a kid, I didn't have that level of understanding.
Right.
Is what I think.
Well, Marla, I want you to respond to that, but you guys are actually responding to Marla on her Facebook Live, I do believe, but I really want somebody to call in and give me either the adult child's perspective or the parent who's having difficulty with this issue and this transition perspective. 323-254-2599.
No, 524. 323-524-2599. He has a tooth. I don't know if you guys can see it.
Okay, the tooth is making me say two instead of five. Anyway, 323-524-2599. I say that like that because 2599, I should say, excuse me. Because in this document that I'm reading, I'm like Ron Burgundy. I can't help but read what's there. It's constantly printed wrong. Anyway.
Okay.
What are you, Anchorman?
That's what I said, Ron Burgundy.
If you were working for my daughter, she would turn your mic off and not allow you to even speak to her in the booth anymore.
She put up a graphic that was appropriate. Anyway, Marla, I want you to literally respond to what Lexi just said. She's saying that you kind of wanted her to show a little less selfishness.
But you taught her to be selfish.
And to be and show more gratitude. But she's basically saying you told her, do you drive for you?
Yeah, but the thing about it is, yes, that's true. But in the consciousness of general appreciation, which I actually am patient to let her grow for her maturation point for everybody is different. And I am patient in understanding that it's impossible. Let me talk to parents right quick. It is impossible for you to ever think, which I had to learn this the hard way, that your children are going to understand your perspective as parents, because they're not parents. It's like saying, hey, showing a blind man a cue card and say, what number is this? You idiot, you can't see this as a 2? No, they're blind. So the bottom line is, You have to put their hands on it and allow them to feel it, which for them won't be until they become parents. Or until, like she said, you become equally selfless in your sacrifice for someone else you love. For some people, they don't have children, but they end up caring for their parents. They take care of their parents because their parents are in a position that they need that kind of selfless care from the kids who are providing. So what I'm saying to you is, yes, I will speak to that. And that's why I would say fall back. You know, I think that I was overboard in rewarding Lexi, Drew, because I saw that same potential in all three of the kids, and they made different choices. And I could love them, but I couldn't cheerlead their choices because it would be irresponsible for me to push them down that direction and think that it's okay for them to keep going.
Now, in your perspective, Marla, and I'm going to get to you in a second, Drew, but in your perspective, Marla, were you and I different on this issue?
Were you
in the way we dealt with this issue?
You and I differ. Where we're the same is we're anchored equally in our core beliefs, and I said this the other day on my Facebook Live. It would be fair to say that two things in life I think create the perfect cocktail of living, and it's purpose and what did I say? Jeez.
That you were about to say core beliefs.
I'm saying because purpose and passion. And I think that where we're equally the same at the core is we are equally attached to the purpose of raising our children and to the passion of our family, which gives us the same, but our approaches are different because environmentally we were shaped differently.
Correct.
And I think you have much more ability to compartmentalize where I don't. I'm very emotional about my kids. I'm very emotional about I'm reasoning, but at the same time, I'm a shake you to your stop it. That's me. Where you just are more willing to let things play out differently. So for me, if I know my child is hearing me, I'm gonna be with her. Yes, I still get frustrated at her expectations, but I see that she's beginning to turn corners with being more selfless in her approach in reciprocation to me.
You said you look like you're about to.
No, and I also just wanted to add this. So,
she bought me this ring.
Dad tried to bring, and I bought myself a matching one. Holla. Dad mentioned the fact that, he was asking, as you transition into adulthood, that relationship, and you said, once you had gone through all the hoops, gone through the rigmarole to make me be able to go to college, we kind of had this rough patch in our relationship when I was actually in college and shortly after, because you felt like, I wasn't really showing how grateful I was. And my other point to that is, and I think that's something that probably a lot of parents deal with, is because what are the ramifications for adulthood? And to me, at that point, I was still fully under your care. I wasn't an adult. Even though I was legally of age, I was 21 by the time I graduated school. You paid for everything I did. If I ate a meal out, it was on your dollar. You paid for my tuition.
You bet. I'm glad you recognize.
I did nothing on my own. So even then, my level of maturity, on paper, I was, 3 years older, 3 years more mature, but my mindset was still the same as before I even
So
went
what
to
was the
school.
shift? What shifted you?
When I had to start paying my own bills.
Okay.
And again, that's kind of what I've always said. Until you actually are at the perspective of an adult, you can't possibly understand the perspective of an adult.
It's not, but I don't think you have to understand my perspective to actually be grateful and show me the appreciation the way I'm telling you I want it.
And one time I remember Moniece was asking for a pretty good lump sum of money. And I was like, what? She said, of course you have that laying around. Which clearly means that she has no idea what happens when you reach adulthood.
Yep, that was right before we slammed the door in her face and moved.
Anyway, so we're going to actually move the conversation into the absolute paradigm shift. And can you ever find that balance of friend to friend versus parent to child? Now, that's difficult for me.
And Lexi's going to get a chance to give us a parent report card. We'll be right back.
It's time for the Marla and Dave Doghouse. Marla has something that should put Dave in the doghouse. Dave has something that should put Marla in the doghouse. You decide who gets a biscuit and who gets busted and ends up in the doghouse.
You know why you're going to the doghouse, Dave? I just decided.
No, I'm not going to the doghouse because I think you're going to the doghouse, but you can go first.
First of all, the doghouse segment is back, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, nobody took advantage of our.
Not enough people.
Not enough people took advantage of the tilt I was giving away my car for $1, so that's normally where you see this. And I want to assure everybody a couple people have written me, the tilt did not fund. So if you put an amount up there, nothing was cash. Exactly. So once we close the tilt, your money's refunded. No harm, no foul. So I still have my car, and you still have your dollars. Got it. Go ahead, Dave.
Well, Marla, you are going to the doghouse because I am so sick and tired of people online on various social networks basically thinking that you're a better tennis player than I am. So even if sometimes you win, I need you to admit you are not a better tennis player than I am.
You're going into the doghouse because you need to look more fit, and therefore people will not assume.
There's a professional. No, you need to actually watch your mouth because you're pulling a Donald Trump. You're literally not telling the truth.
You need to look more athletic, and then people would not doubt you.
Marla, here's the key.
Dave?
Again, you want to go in the doghouse for another reason. There you go. Always actually dogging everybody else. But I'll put it to you like this.
Put on your
You're
Speedo,
not a
Dave.
better tennis player than I am. And again, we were taking lessons one time, and the pro basically said whoever can generate the most pace is generally the
David,
better tennis player.
Let me explain something to you. If you were so boss, there'd be no way I should be able to beat you.
Not true. Now every
You're
time
in the doghouse for being unrealistic with your
Marla,
expectations. You're a good tennis player, but so am I.
Here
Tony,
is your,
kill his mic.
No, don't do it, Tony. here is your chance. You can admit and just give your own qualification. I'm not even going to say this.
Lexi, who's a better tennis player?
Dad's 100% more consistent than you are. That's just a given.
How the hell do you know?
You're
You've
powerful,
been in Savannah,
but
Georgia
dad is more consistent, and that's
I'm
probably why
powerful?
he's better, because power doesn't win.
And you're not
Tony,
even a more powerful
Tony,
tennis
kill
player
her
than I
mic
am.
And bundle their mics. Kill them together. Put them in a.
That's why you go in the doghouse, because
Hell.
you always lead people to believe that you're the better tennis
David,
player.
I have not tried to convince anyone of anything. I'm a bomb athlete.
You are,
Done.
but I'm bomber.
No, Dave.
Anyway, that's the doghouse. Clearly, Marley gets the doghouse. I get the biscuit. So it's gonna be
I
cold
will
up there
not
tonight.
shoot
At
this-
least it's not cold. I would
I'm
say
not,
that we live
well,
in
I'll
LA.
tell you what.
So
I'm not going to be swallowing down any bones. Done with that.
Okay.
back to
Bye.
the show.
What's the action?
You'll laugh. You'll learn. You'll learn. You'll get mad. Shut up. You'll get happy. But you won't be bored. This is the Marla and Dave radio show on the Universal Broadcast Network.
So the doghouse segment is back. I don't know, Dave, if you even won that. But in the meantime, while we're coming back, I want to again give a shout out and a little commercial here to Dig the Kicks. So Annette Diggs has actually outfitted me in she has a new apparel line, and I'm all about comfort. So to be totally honest with you, this. It's just a sweatsuit, but it's awesome. It's comfy. And
I'm mad at Marla. I should have said this as my doghouse, because had I known Marla was going to wear that, Annette made me a sweatsuit too. I would have been matching.
And that's why I didn't tell him, because I'm not trying to look like Humpty Dumpty walking around here. And
Humpty Dumpty?
What are you saying?
Frickin' frack.
What are you saying? All right, we have a caller, Marla. I'm gonna have to put you on hold while I get to this caller.
I don't even know how I came
Caller,
up with
you
Humpty
are
Dumpty.
on the air. Go ahead, you're on with Marla, Dave, and Lexi.
Easter overload.
Hello.
Hey.
Marla.
Hey, what's up? What's up? Who is this?
Hey, Marla, this is an old friend of yours.
Old friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
Greg?
Yeah. I've been giving you a hard time for almost 5 years now. Milton Slocum.
Oh, Milton Slocum. Milton, first of all, Tony, do we have a slapping sound so I can slap him for calling me? He's been calling me 57 years old online. I'm like, bro, I'm not 57. You do. You're in great shape for a 57-year-old. I'm like, okay, but first of all, you just saw my birthday post. Milton, welcome to the MaD House.
Well, this is my first time, and I had to make an attempt to get in here. Your daughter is incredible. I mean, she is I've listened to her over the years. Actually, I watched her grow up. Very mature young woman. I can see her doing some great things.
Thank
but
you,
you know
Milton.
what? I think she take more after Dave. Dave is what you call a very mild-mannered man. He's quiet and doesn't seem to argue a lot.
You're very astute
he's
there,
that type
Milton.
of man,
I'm with you so far.
So did you have a question did you want to make a statement? Because I saw online earlier that you said that you've got adult children. What's your best advice?
Yeah. I wanted to say, kids these days, Marla, Dave, I don't know what happened. I really don't. This generation, I just wish I could just
smack them.
Just grab them by the
throat.
Yeah, really. The pants down. Do you know what would have happened to me, Marla, had I walked around my city of Atlanta with my pants down?
Somebody would have spanked that ass.
Okay.
Oh, no, I would have been arrested.
That's true.
For indecent exposure.
And then you would have gotten spanked in the prison.
But no, I was a disciplinary in my family with my kids, and I would give them that look, tug on my belt, and that was that.
So, Milton, I'm going to ask you. Go ahead. Go ahead. I was going to say, because we got other callers, I want to be sure I get one point out.
I got to get out of here. I know you got people trying to get in, but I just wanted to say this. If I had a son, and if I saw him with his pants down, you would probably have to visit me in jail, Marla.
Oh.
Now, is that regardless of how old that son is? As an adult child, would you still go upside his head as an adult?
Yeah, and I would disown them. But I don't believe a son of mine would do that, Dave, because of the way I raised them, really. When you raise your kids a certain way, you expect certain things, and you give them certain values, of course.
Okay, well, Milton, I'll tell you this. I definitely appreciate that. Number one. And two, we appreciate your calling. We're going to actually get back to the show, but thank you, Milton. Keep listening and call in again.
Yeah, by all means, I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
You guys are...
So what Milton was actually saying there is I agree with him on one hand, but then again, there are some things that I don't agree with because we pretty much raised all of our kids with the same values. They didn't all turn out the same. So
right.
So
which is why I opened with that by saying we have 3 kids. Everybody focuses on the one you see the most of due to TV, but in reality, we've been we are the link for all 3 kids. 3 children who are 3 different people have been parented with equal interest and love. So what they represent or what they show us is also based on who they are.
But I also am like Milton to an extent, because I will admit that I have a hard time with our children. I don't really look at, I think I'm the same level of friend to my children as adults as I was when they were younger, because, and I don't really have it's not easy for me to change from the parent that is the last word, because for me, with my own parents, I don't hang out as friends with my parents. They're still my parents. When I disagree, I remove myself, if that makes any sense. And I'm not trying to go hang out the movies with my parents or, hey, let's go do this together.
It depends on who your parents are. They've got baby parents.
I do some things with my parents, but we're not at the level as I am with my other friends. Not that I love them any less.
Your parents had you at a responsible age. We had them at a when we look back at pictures of ourselves, we look ridiculous.
And so when I talk to Lexi, I still think that I'm the authority And so in my mind, if she
That's
has,
what you think.
if she disagrees with me, I still figure that I'm right, but I give her the leeway to make the wrong decision.
Let me say this. Lexi's 24, and when I look at Lexi and look at where she is in life and who she is in life, my mind boggles because at her actual age, I was already the mother of 3 children.
2.
3.
I was born when you were 26.
I was wrong. You were born when I was 24.
Really? Ooh, girl.
Yes. I had your sister at 19. I just turned 19. I had your brother at 21, and I had you at 24.
Oh, I thought you were 26. That's what I've been telling all my friends. Sorry, girl.
Yeah, trying to make me older. Anyway, so yeah, that matters. But I wanted to hear a
But
little.
it seems like you always want to be the friend, if that makes any sense, of your adult children.
And let me jump in here because that's something that I think you guys, if I, we'll get to the report card later, but what I was going to say is, the same way that the relationship you form with your kids has to be different per kid. My relationship to you and Dad is very different as well, because kind of what Dad said is that you are more, if I had to describe the way our relationship has gone, it has gone very up and down like this, because we're always trying to find this balance of friend to parent. So you'll go extreme friend, and then out of nowhere, it's kind of like I get in that, playful mindset, like, oh, we're buddies.
You have to give me an example.
I don't have a specific example. I mean, it's been kind of just how the ebb and flow of our relationship, but you do tend to jump in as a hardcore parent when there's something that really concerns you that you're passionate about, which is good, but you also are wanting to be friend. So it's kind of like finding that balance, and I think we've just now been able to hit a point where we kind of have, been able to meet a middle ground. But up until now, it has been very turbulent because even when I was
You didn't
in school,
apologize for the sandwich. That's why it's turbulent.
and I'm never going to apologize for the sandwich. That's a whole show in and of itself.
I just wanted to trap her in here and make her apologize.
With Dad, Dad is more consistent. And that's not a diss or anything. He's just a different parenting style. Dad is more consistent in the fact that, like he said, even still, I can have a conversation with Dad and, even though I find it kind of like annoying, he'll, always ring me back in and be like, who
are you talking to?
Who are you talking to? But with you, we can fully cross that line as buddies and then take it back to parent, a child. But Dad, it's always...
I'm the parent.
It's always
You're
loving, but it's always
We've got
very
a caller
strict.
that's waiting. People are waiting to get in, so we're going to take a call. Caller, you're on the air with Marla and Dave and Lexi. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, guys.
Hey, Nikki.
It's Nikki.
I know who you are. And Tony's cheering for you. You can't see Mr. Sweetie, but he's like, yes, it's Nikki.
Nikki, still, what do you have to say, Nikki?
So. Well, really, to kind of speak on the whole point you mentioned in the beginning about whose obligation is it to make it so that the kids go to college.
Right.
And I'm probably in the minority when I think it's the parents, just because I think based on the parents raising their child and how they kind of put certain notions and ideals in their head, it wouldn't be fair to have someone raise you thinking you're going to college, you're going to aspire to all these great things, and then suddenly you get to be a senior in high school and they say, yeah, but you're a grown-up now, so you're on your own. Well, I don't think that would be an appropriate way to put someone out into the adult world.
I respectfully agree, but here's where we disagree. College of your choice.
Okay.
See, now that's another subject. Like Dave said, her Lexi's academic portfolio was good enough to go to a bunch of different schools that would not have cost us but a fraction of the money. She got to choose.
But then you should have had a dumber child then. That's not her.
That's enough out of you, Nikki.
Nikki, number one, I definitely appreciate you calling the show and keep doing it. We love it. We like you. We love you, Nikki. Thank you.
And Nikki's family.
You're MaD family.
Oh, you guys. You're the best.
You didn't have to. All right, let's.
Okay, so and we have other callers, and I will apologize to the callers because sometimes we get caught up in the conversation and we just tend to leave you there for a minute. So, but I'm going to say this. See, I want to have a nuance, and I'm going to get back.
Did she finish her thought, though?
Hey, go ahead. Did you not finish?
I feel like that was my thought. It's just that, there is a difference, too. As a child, I think there is a role that we have to play in balancing how we build a relationship with one parent versus the other.
So what's your shift? What shifted for you?
Okay, I was going to say, because Marla, sometimes you get upset at the perceived difference from your perspective of the children's relationship to you and I.
Oh, well, yeah. Well,
That's what she was describing.
I hear that, but I can hear that from her in balance. But what I'm saying is, my life's work. I don't have an alternate career. You just told me I'm never going to be a member of Take Six. You just said that the other day.
Did I? I don't remember saying that.
You said that.
Your
We're
Honor,
going to go back.
Strike that from the record.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be the invisible Take Six member who never has to sing. You said that won't happen. So therefore, motherhood has been my only life's investment. So for me, it's a lot harder to feel like you poured yourself into everything. With the issues we've had with our kids, it would be equivalent to a 401k. You invest your life in a company, and all of a sudden you go there, and not only can you not withdraw your retirement, the whole bank that was holding your retirement has been leveled and it's gone, and there's nowhere to get anything. You can't even get answers. So for me, I felt like there was a lot less to ground me in fulfillment in anything else, and I realized that they're people. But that's a crushing blow to me as a mom, because from 19 to 49 is my whole prime years of living, and like she said, she understands now how big the sacrifice is. But my only expectation in return, it was appreciation.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is,
so it's rougher for me.
And what I hear Lexi saying, and Lexi, correct me if I'm wrong. What I hear Lexi saying is that from the child's perspective, they have to build relationships with individual parents in an individual way, because just like a parent has a relationship with their individual children, and it's not always the exact same, even though they love them 100%, the relationships are different. The children have a different relationship with either parent. And what I heard her saying, and I agree to an extent, and you can respond to this, because, and I want you to focus on this, because what she's saying is there are some times where you're so much of a friend, you have already been crossing the line of respect and parent and what comes back.
Oh, as adults at this point, absolutely, because now we have an established relationship.
But then sometimes you snap back into, who the hell are you talking to?
Exactly. So what I'm saying is that's who I am. So that's not my issue. Addressing what you're saying, I'm just saying that it feels twice as empty to me that you pretty much have a career that it doesn't even allow you to be in the house, and yet you're like, everything you do, it seemed to be perceived as, oh, dad, dad is the one, dad. And I'm like, okay, so it seemed to me that the kids were always feeling or exhibiting more appreciation, even the twisted, outrageous ones. My dad. And I'm like, okay, but 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, for your entire lives, for 30 years, I've been the only face that you've been consistently dealing with. And so, and meaning that...
It kind of sounds like I'm a deadbeat dad.
No, Dad.
But I let that go.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying...
Doghouse for next week.
Here's what I'm saying. And I said it to you the other day. You and I recognize, are equally emotionally invested. We are also equally invested in the physical and emotional management of our children. And some of them still need a lot of care. The only thing is, we do it together, and then I do it by myself. You don't have to do it by yourself. So what I'm saying to you is, I'm doing heavy lifting. The physical management, it never rests for me. It's all the time. So I don't get to even go to a hotel on a road trip for a week and even sleep by myself without the stress of having to manage home.
I get it.
And so I want the appreciation that comes from the kids is what I felt is lacking. And they seem to shower you with that. And yet I have had to do a lot of shifting and altering, because I'm always trying to find ways to shift so I can find out what works. That's the bottom line. So I want Lexi to give us a report card, since we have her trapped in this room.
It looks like that report card keeps getting pushed further and further back. So
she's gonna do it. And when we get this break, when we come back from the break, Lexi is going to give us a parent report card. Will we pass or will we fail? The verdict is out. We'll find out shortly. We'll be right back. Stay there.
It's time to play the Marla and Dave Love Game. Here are Marla and Dave to explain how it works.
Oh, Are we going to play this game with our
No,
beautiful daughter?
I'm always slightly uncomfortable to
Oh,
play
go
the
ahead,
love
Dave.
game
Play up
with
the
my
sex
kids.
cards like you normally do
Because
with all
it's
your
kinda
guests.
inappropriate. But anyway, the Mad Love Game was the game created by Marla and me. It consists of the 3 categories that we think impact most relationships the most. It's sex, sticky,
Finance.
finance, and communication. It's played by rolling a single die. I will hand it to our guest as usual, Lexi. You better not roll sex because I'm sure you know nothing about it. Anyway.
What's that?
It's the MaD logo. You get to choose the
choose
category.
one.
Okay, what are they?
Sex, communication, and finance.
Communication.
Gonna be scary.
Communication. Good girl. What 4 words do women use as a conversation starter that men hate most? Men hate these 4 words that women use for
Let's see
conversation
how
starters.
well she's
I'm not
doing in her
mad,
relationship.
but that's
I'm not
huge.
mad, but
Any
that's a
conditional,
good one.
really. Any conditional. It's not me. It's you. That's 5, but
Well, you don't even have
You
to
know.
say that one. That's all women believe that. But go ahead.
I don't know. I guess I'm just the most awesomest girlfriend ever, so I don't have to really deal with these troublesome phrases.
Well,
But
for
I
the
can't really-
record, our answers come from the PW or the Pew
Oh,
Research
so there are-
Center.
there
These
are
are
actual-
real.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not mad, but it's not me. It's you. But that's not for. That's where I tap out. I can't think of any others.
That's how you know she's young.
Yeah, and
What is it, Tony?
Oh,
Do
that's
you
a good
love
one.
me?
That's a good one.
do
you love
I
me?
look fat?
The men ask that?
No,
Women.
Women.
Oh, yeah.
no. Actually,
It's
it is.
we
We
need to talk.
To talk.
Oh yeah, I should have thought of that one. That's
That always
a breakup.
means, God, because women
Do
don't
you-
really.
We don't
wanna-
ever stop talking. So when you want to talk specifically,
It's
that's
a problem.
scary.
Yeah. Women's minds focus on feelings while men focus on problem solving. So when women say we need to talk, it's usually something that they feel so strongly about that you're about to go in the doghouse when you don't deserve it. Anyway, the fun thing about the Mad Love Game is that each question has a further discussion question that makes it fun when it's a good conversation starter and sparks great discussions with a group of people when you're playing with your friends. The further discussion question for this card is, what alternative phrase would men prefer women use?
Ooh.
Shut the hell up.
Alternative to we need to talk,
What?
I don't even know.
Yeah, alternative to we need to talk.
and it has to be within the same parameter.
Leave
4 words.
me.
I can't. I don't know.
Let's have hot sex. That would work.
Okay.
I don't even know what that
I
is.
wasn't
Not for
even
you, Lexi. I
saying.
never want you to say that. But Marla,
She-
if you say that to me, I would say,
David.
Ew.
David.
I'll
Ew.
think about that. Yes, the answer is yes.
These headphones are broken. I can still
Gosh
hear
darn
you.
it, the answer is yes.
She said my headphones are broken. I can still hear you.
Oh, man.
Sweetie, I'm going to tell you something right here live on the radio. We actually did have sex to get you.
Okay, and that's where the buck stops.
That's it. We only
And
did it 3
moving on.
times.
Tony
I've,
did it.
I've only had sex 3 times in my life, twice with your dad, once elsewhere. Yeah, that's it.
So, Marla, what do you think? Well, I can speak from my perspective. What 4 words could you use instead that you think I would like to hear? Wanna
Let's
to
go
bed?
to the village.
Okay.
That's 5 anyway. Counting is
Let's
probably rude.
let's grab a bite.
Let's grab a bite. That was pretty good.
Yeah, and then we could. Then I'll talk to you while you have food in
Kiss
your
my
mouth.
black.
Anyway, you can get your copy of the
It's not
Mad
black.
Love Game by going to www.marlandave.com. Right there in the Mad merch, you'll find the Mad Love Game and other great Mad accessories and fun things that you can actually buy in the Mad store. We're going to get back to the show.
David is a thinker.
I never do anything without thinking about it first.
Marla is a feeler.
I basically wear my personality on my sleeve.
But when Marla and Dave get together, it's like a match dancing with a firecracker. This is the Marla and Dave radio show on the Universal Broadcast Network.
All right, before we get back to the discussion, this week's poll question was, can we hold reality TV responsible as one of the main culprits for destroying the consciousness of today's youth?
I voted hell yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Your
Lexi's
options
shaking her
were
head.
hashtag of course not, hashtag of course, hashtag not
Undecided.
sure. What do you think, Lexi?
I think no. I think social media is a way bigger culprit.
That's what Drew said last week.
Social
He
media.
Drew
said,
Frederick.
the internet.
Social media is much more accessible, and it creates a very false reality. Worse than reality. It's more. I would say it's more invasive than reality TV, and that's why I think social media trumps in that category.
Well,
Please don't use that word.
69% of
Trump.
69 of the people actually percent of the
swearing.
people actually believed and agreed with you. Hashtag of course not. 17% of the people said of course, and they must have been mom voting over and over. I'm just joking.
I think that reality TV is a result of social media.
Well, 14% said not sure. Hashtag of course not. Or not sure, I should say.
Next week's poll that, remember, you can go vote on the poll right there in the front of our website, www.marlandave.com. Here's the poll question for next week. Should a parent's decision to let go of their children be based on hashtag age, hashtag education, hashtag money?
Marla has a tooth. Anyway, we're going to get back to the show.
Can you handle the truth? This is modern American dialogue in a mad world from two unique, fresh, transparent perspectives. This is the Marla and Dave Radio Show.
We have a compliment right here, Dave, on the Facebook Live from DeAndre Fahim Johnson, and he says, I love how transparent you all are as a family. You all seem to tackle issues and specific concerns that would topple most couples that I know. Love. Thank you for that. And thank you all always for tuning in. So we can't get out of here. We're coming towards the close, but we're not going anywhere without our last little segment. So we're going to turn the floor over to our so apt and capable daughter. And we're going to let her give us a parent report card. How do you feel that we've done as parents?
Are we going on an A to fail plus minus scale?
A to fail.
I would say that you both get A's, but it's tough. I would say you both get A's, but if I had to give an explanation section, I'll tell you why.
Where do you think that we could use improvement? Where do you think, and separately?
Improvement, so I'll start with you. You get an A 100% for, effort. You never, even now, you always put your kids first. You never stop loving, giving, even when it's intense. And that's what you are, is you are intense. You're a very passionate person. So whether that's happy, proud, whatever it is, you're 150%, which is great. But I think that where you could improve is that sometimes I think you let that passion blind you. And I say this because you do have 3 kids, and obviously not every single one of your kids has done the choices you said you can cheerlead, your words. I think that you are almost too hard on yourself. That passion is so intense. You give 100%. Sometimes there are factors that are outside of your control, and you let those factors eat you up when it's outside of your control. So, you can do everything that you can do, and I think at some point, I think your passion disables you from seeing that clearly. And I think a lot of times, I think you're too hard on yourself, and then it kind of puts you in this, you doubt and all that stuff. But I think that if you just have more faith in, everything you've done, and you've done it to your best capability, and just have faith that what you've done is enough, and there are certain things you can't control. You're also a control freak, which I am too. But that's part of it. You're a passionate control freak. I say it in the best way possible. Much love, Mama.
Okay. And now about Dad.
Dad, you're an A too, but you're
an A. That's her way of getting past
grade,
it.
You get an A, but your explanation is, I think that you could improve on the fact that you are very old school, which is a same thing as mom's but different. Blessing and a curse in that you instilled in your kids very traditional values, and you are a very traditional person. But sometimes it makes you your paradigm is really rigid. And, as a kid, I take everything you say as, that's the hard line, matter of fact, truth. But as an adult, as I disagree, we have our disagreements here and there. Mm-hmm. I think that you, as a as a very old school person with traditional values, have a hard time, even if sometimes I know I'm right. Even if I know I'm right, and I'm like this, like you too, that we're both stubborn, but you have an edge of traditional that kind of compounds your stubbornness, in that it's very hard for you to let down your like strict mold of what you think, you know, your kids should be doing, or that's not really what I'm trying to say. Your traditional is very hard sometimes, and I think just in conversation, and like in transforming. So like while you are a good parent and a friend, me and mom are probably a little bit closer on the friendly level, because with you it's still a very hard block. You know, you're still
the parent.
I actually can joke with her boyfriend, and you're actually going to kill him.
Yeah.
No, I'm just not going to get.
boyfriend.
I'm just not going to get as close to the boyfriend as you are.
That we do have 5 minutes. That's a very funny story.
Well, no, I would literally.
That is a very funny story.
That is a funny story.
Dave
but before we do this story, I would say I agree with you, and it's probably like Mom said, the way that we were raised by our parents,
right.
Because I'm really.
It's backlash.
I love
it's like
my parents to
backdraft.
death. We're not friends at that level, if that makes any sense.
I'm friends with my mom. My mom and I hang out.
Yeah,
we go to Vegas.
you
We
do.
we make it rain at the club.
Because the things I like to do, I'm sure my parents don't want to do.
We're like, woo! Mimi and I went to
So-
Cabo. We were on the beach. We were dropping it. We were doing the twerking. We were.
Okay, now we know what
Anyway.
happened in Cabo.
Yeah, so we got another discussion. Lexi's not around.
Doghouse.
Doghouse again. Thank you, Lexi.
My mama's online. We about to make another trip.
But you know what? I actually agree with you, Lexi, with your assessment. That's very astute. But I would say this. I think you have to give me credit for this. I love my children to
have
disagree with me. I love my kids to disagree with me and argue their points.
And that's the point. You're a
very,
debater.
In a very educated way, and use everything that you bring to the table
But then
and
that
try to
means, are
change
you
my
just
mind. I
creating
like it.
Dissension and debate? Are you
No, because I want them to harden their own perspective to a degree. Not that they would be very
Their paradigm should be rigid?
not rigid, but strong enough that they are strong individuals in and of themselves, and I want them to believe how they believe. So
And if you can't explain it, you don't believe
I
it.
like to argue back and forth. Lex and I used to do that all the time, and I told her, I said, I like it. It represents your point. Make your argument.
So what's my grade as a child?
Oh, you get an A.
No,
No
not for
plus?
me.
I
She
give
gets
you an A,
I'm giving
not
her
an
a
A
B.
plus. I
She's
give you
getting
an
a
A.
B plus.
Oh, do you want me to start subtracting points
No,
from your
you
grade?
gave the grade already, and let me tell you why I'm giving you a B. I'm giving you a B. I'm going to take it back. I give you an A, but here's where you can improve.
Nice. I like it.
Okay.
Here,
So
an
where-
A minus.
Where's the plus?
No, I'm not going to give him an A minus because I think that you actually you're perfect in your you, which I will say that is what I feel. I joke all the time and I say I have 2 deaf kids and one that heard everything we had to say. I appreciate what you filtered and taken in, because my goal in parenting, and I'm saying this as we get ready to close, for all of my children was way more about who they were as people and not what they became in their efforts in life. You know, you can do different things, but I really wanted to work on the soul of the human being. So I give you an A because your connected consciousness and your sense of responsibility to that for yourself is amazing to me. Where I think you can improve is trying to learn to be a little bit more empathic, opening up yourself to not all the time.
Can't do it.
I think that you've been, like you said, I think that it's time to start not seeing yourself first, not putting others so much before you, but understanding that the scope of love is really about the outpouring, the giving. And I said this earlier, you know, true love is all about what you give and not what you expect. And the reward for love is that the person that you've showered your love on can actually receive it. And so that's the thing. And that's when love to me is actually reciprocated and it's felt. Not that you have to give back to me, but that just receiving. And so I want to see you more in the love driver's seat than being the one that's constantly showered upon.
Here's what I would say.
And I see more and more of that, by the way.
I give you an A because as far as I'm concerned with what I suspect that your paradigm should be, you're right where I expect you to be.
Hey, Lawrence.
So there are things about that I know that you will grow into because I know who you are. I don't really waste my time worrying about those things because I know that's going to come. You're right where I expect you to be. So that's why I give you an A. Where you can get better is you cannot ever have a boyfriend. So anyway, right before we leave, somebody wrote in, Lisa from Kansas, Marla, you haven't heard this, said that I'm a big fan of the Marla and Dave show. I love it on Monday, and they're so funny and compassionate and beautiful. I'm so glad that they're talking about issues that are going on in the world today. Other than my parents, these two are a positive role model to me, and I love Take 6 as well. So there you go. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for listening. Thank you for everybody that listens.
Next week, you cannot miss the Marla and Dave show. Be right here in the MaD House. Through my journey and my struggles, I was blessed to encounter an angel to help guide me along the way, and that is life coach and therapist Des Davis. Will be joining us next week. So you get your questions ready, guys, because she helped me hit the restart button. She can do the same for you.
See you next week.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye.